Hello guys, welcome back in this third tutorial or sessions for this mentorship program. So as far I have seen, most of the people were not following our sessions. So I've decided that today's sessions will be on basics of JavaScripts, Vue.js, and CSS or HTML. So such that you will have those in your hand for easy development of your software. So this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are really very handy, and every software developer should know how to use those. And it comes very much in use when you are doing some some projects where you need to interact with the clients. So client-facing projects requires these skills. So without wasting time, I'll be directly jumping into coding. Let me accept some of the people. Okay, so without wasting time, let me jump into coding. So today we'll be building our login interface using JavaScript, CSS, and Bootstrap. So first thing, I am also creating this project for the first time. As such, I have not. Okay, let me admit everyone. Yeah. So everyone is inside. Okay. Yeah. So I have not done some kind of project. So we'll be togetherly doing the projects. First of all, what I'll do is create a new project. If you have an editor, then it's fine. If you don't have an editor, you can use any text editor or anything. So for me, in the case, I'll be using Sublime. Sublime is very flexible and very useful. So I'll be using Sublime. Yeah. So let me create a directory first. For creating a directory in terminal, or you can directly right click and create new folder. But I prefer terminal most of the time. So I use terminal mkdir for creating the directory. Once I'm in desktop, so I'll be creating the directory, for example, session 3. Session 3. I'll get inside session 3 by doing cd session 3, and then I'll be creating one file known as touchindex.html. And how to open this in Sublime is very easy. Subl dot. So it automatically opens your project in Sublime. So you can see one file is there, index.html. So index.html is the file whenever a server is being hit by someone or anyone does a GET request. Instead of searching all the files and finding out which one is main, the server searches for the index file and renders it to the users. So first we'll create this index file, and we'll start by using little bit of UI also. So we'll go with Bootstrap. Bootstrap is nothing, it's a library of CSS. As you guys know, CSS is used for beautification of your websites, but CSS coding requires little bit of time. If you want to create a app or something, you should put enough time, from the scratch itself. So that in that scenario, Bootstrap comes into very handy. So Bootstrap has this library for immediately creating your site itself. Bootstrap, if you type Bootstrap 4, it's the newest version of Bootstrap. So just go to the Bootstrap site. Okay, so if you go to the Bootstrap site, you will be having get started. Click on that. It will tell you how to get started. So it will tell you to add this in your CSS link, add this CSS link in your head, or add this JavaScript links in your head. So I would prefer copying the entire HTML template and pasting it there. So your Bootstrap file is ready. Yeah. So once your Bootstrap file is ready, you can now open the Bootstrap file very easily. You just have to open that. Where is this file? Okay, so go to the session, and if you click on that, it will open up in your browser. This index.html will be opened up in your browser itself. So it might take little time depending upon your browser speed. So yeah, so this is how you add your Bootstrap plugin inside your code. So let me re-summarize it. First, you have to create a directory, then create index.html file. Okay, one chat. Let me see what people are asking. Please also increase the font size. Okay, so fine. I'll be increasing the font size. So this is, I have not coded this. I have went to the Bootstrap site. I have went to the Bootstrap site. I have clicked on Get Started inside the home. I have clicked on Get Started. It told me to copy this starter template. So I have just copied this starter template and I have pasted it in my index.html file. As you can see, it says starter template from Bootstrap site. And I have just opened the file in HTML. So you can see this HTML has been rendered. So yeah, and now you can go to, so first thing you need in your site is a navigation bar. For example, if you see this entire thing is a navigation bar. So using which people navigate from one page to other. So you need that in your site. So Bootstrap already has a component's name is navbar. So you can add that component in your site itself. For example, if I'll copy this and paste it in the Sublime. So inside the body, I'll paste that navigation bar and I'll save it. So you can see. Okay. Yeah. So if you see, if you refresh that, your navbar will be visible. So right now, okay. So thing is, I have not imported the Bootstrap library properly. So that's why these things are coming on. So also the thing is, whenever you want to, okay, fine. Bootstrap CSS. So ideally, it should load without any issues. But the problem it is facing, yeah. So I don't know what issue it showed in the first time. Right now, it showed without an issue. It renders. So you can see the navbar is already there in your uh, app or something like that. You can edit the navbar hell by itself. So if you go to the code, you will see home. You can change it to calculator later, and you can change the navbar name to first calculator and save it. And when you refresh it, that will change, and it will change to my first calculator and calculator as a link. There are other options also. You can anyway experiment it out and check out which one you can use for your projects. There is a link, there is drop down menus. Inside drop down, some you can add one more drop down menu, disabled links. There is a search option. You can click on search and do search functions. So there are other options which you can use in this navigation. You can use a Bootstrap, you can use your own icon. So multiple thing you can do, just you have to go through this documentation. However, your whatever you need is, you can directly copy it from here and paste it in your project. So that's how easy, like that's how it is easy for you to create a new website using Bootstrap. So in that way, the Bootstrap comes very handy. Now without just a small this was a small, I mean, showcase of how Bootstrap can be used. I would not focus on using Bootstrap. I would rather focus on creating a JavaScript application. So In this thing, I'll be using Vue.js, as this is the most trending uh, front-end library used by most of the big companies like Alibaba. Then big companies are using this front-end technology. Also, it's very trending. It has the most add in GitHub community. So if you want to add a logo of your own, it's very simple. So here, if you see, there it's already there. If you can see, everything has a similar pattern. If you see, you can remove the source file and add your own source file. So what is this source file is like, it's connecting to your image source. So if you have hosted your image in some in some server or something, you will get a URL. Just copy and paste this URL and copy this entire code and paste in your project or your index file. Then this navigation bar will be having your own navigation with your own icon. That's how easy it is. And yeah, and it is also very beautiful. If you see, Bootstrap uses their own design principles, which are really very beautiful. It has other components also. For example, if you want to add such kind of boxes, you can use alerts. If you want to add badges, uh, then you can use badge. See the code, just copy paste, it will be ready for you. If you want to use breadcrumbs or something like slash and then this, you can use this code. There are other options like buttons, which are already being created by the Bootstrap. So you can use these codes. All have different classes depending upon your requirements. So if you see their button outline primary is this color. So if I copy this and paste it in our Sublime somewhere below hello world and save it, now you will see one button will be added below that hello world. So that's how handy the Bootstrap is. You can be using any other library also. For example, there are other alternative library for Bootstrap like Materialize CSS and multiple other libraries are there. But people nowadays generally use Bootstrap because it's used by most of the communities, and it's also updating its libraries every now and then. So yeah, so you can see this button is added and it also looks cool. Now it's time for us to yeah, you can pretty much experiment out all other components here. So if you see, there is progress, there is spinners, there is toast. So toast is something which you can show as a message. So there's toast. Also tooltips, something when you click on, or when you hover on some buttons, this is known as tooltip. So you can add tooltips, jumbotron, collapse, carousel. Carousel is it's a first page, something where you can actually add your image and let the user slide it. So generally in the first page or home page, people will be using carousel. There are other two forms you can use, go sign in forms or something like that sort of thing. So yeah, so today's session will be using sign in form. So we will be creating our own interface for signing. And yeah, without getting any delay, let's just copy this code and paste it down, remove this entire hello world and enter this navigation. This was just for showing purpose. I'll be using my indentations such that the code seems clean, and I'll be pasting that form. Before that, I'll put one center. Center means everything will be centered, so it looks beautiful. And before center, I'll be using one div so that my entire body comes under one div. It helps me when I'll be adding the Vue.js code. It will help me in determining which fragment is your sign-in fragment. So this is what you just copy the template from Bootstrap and add this to thing in removing the h1 tag. So after adding that, you can add your sign-in codes, which I have copied it from the Bootstrap site. So I copied it And just to look better, I'll be indenting. Yeah, so it looks cool, and I'll be saving it. I just copied code. Till now, I have not done any coding. I have been copying code from Bootstrap. Now, if you refresh it and wait for some time till my browser loads the page, you will see the email address and the password thing will come. But it doesn't looks very good because it's stretched out entire width of this uh, screen. So I would be doing a little bit of CSS to show you how to make this look good. For that, a so I'll be using style attribute. Okay, before adding style attribute, I'll make sure that form comes under this. Yeah, everything is okay. I'll add style attributes in this, and then inside that, margin top, and something around 10 pixel, and maximum width around 200 pixel. And if I save it and I do refresh, see everything has shrunk into a small bit. It looks good, and yeah, it pretty much looks decent. So then the problem in this is an index. So whatever you are doing, you are loading it from a file. So whenever you load it from a file, it doesn't wait for a response or some kind of it delivers the file at once. So there is no way around. You can do some kind of processing in the front end itself. So you should have some kind of hosting server. So this is not rendered from a hosting server. As you can see, it has been rendered from a file. So we need a hosting server. So for hosting server, I have been pretty much using our WebStorm. So I didn't need for any hosting server. I'll go with this WebStorm only. I'll open up with this WebStorm projects. I'll go to the desktop, and I have created that. Okay, I'll open up, and WebStorm doesn't take time. It immediately loads the projects. I don't need this command prompt because WebStorm has an option to click. Similarly, in VSC also you have some kind of plugins through which you can automatically have the terminal in below the editor. So here in this case, I'll be using index and run index.html. So as you can see, in one click itself, it boots up the server and it's on and running. So you have this sign in and sign in this thing form added into your index.html file. So yeah. So right now, my form currently have the visualization part of it, but I want it to be working. I mean, it should have functionality side of it. So I'll be using JavaScript for vanilla JavaScript or the main JavaScripts. Which is given by your browser. You can pretty much go to W3 schools and learn JavaScript from there itself. So I'll go through all those functions a little bit. Yeah. So as you can see, JavaScript is a very flexible languages. It can be directly run into your console itself. So if you have a browser console, you can directly go there and run the JavaScript code without installation of any other packages or any other libraries. Even if you want some libraries, you can directly import it in your index.html file, and the library will be ready for your purpose. So in this way, we can directly use the JavaScript. So we'll start by coding little bit of JavaScript. So JavaScript is similar to C programming or Java. Or it's little bit similar to that only, but it doesn't require any semicolon, or it doesn't also have any indentation issues like Python. So it's very flexible. So for example, I'll create, so initially what you have to create a int or an object with int or something like that. So for JavaScript, you use var as a variable. So whatever the variable is, you can use anything. So Jordash equal to Jordash, and you can type Jordash. You can see the Jordash string has been stored in Jordash. You can similarly add number inside that. See, number is there. So similarly, you can do the dictionaries inside that. So dictionary is also known as JSON object. So name. So this is JSON object, and you can directly preview it like this. So in Python, what we have to do, we had to use the square brackets to preview the keyword. So in JavaScript, you can use the square brackets, also use normal, this form also. This form is copied from Java, this type of language. So you don't need any semicolons or anything, indentation, such things in JavaScript. So it's very easy to use. And next thing is, like, if you want to write your own code and then console, like you have print statement in Python. In JavaScript, you has console.log. So console is an object. Inside that, it has a function of log. Inside that, you can console anything. So in this way, you can use JavaScript. So for loop is also the same as C++ or any other languages you have done, basic languages. If I have any list, I'll be using for each. I mean, first we'll go and get this Vue.js library. For installing library is very simple. You just have to go to Vue.js homepage and get started. Yeah, and inside that, in JavaScript, one thing you can do is you can create functions and store it is in a variable. So example, I'm creating an add function where it adds two variable. So it can actually it can actually add it can actually get save into variable. So one plus, so you can see the functions can be inserted into variable, and that variable can be used later on. So for in this scenario, we'll be using it as, okay, it was working. Actually, I didn't saw this 10 symbol. So what happened there? So it was there at 10. That means 10 times it has been looped. Instead of printing it 10 times, it just showed this into 10. So that's how I thought it printed only once. Anyway, so this way you can use the for loop, and we'll go to the next thing. Yeah, one more check. Yeah. So also now how to install this is very simple. You have to add this this script file. I mean script source file, script this thing, and paste it in the head of your index file. So you can paste it pretty much here itself after the title, and your Vue.js library is being imported in your project. So yeah, so right now if you load it, and so jsdeliver.net, it is getting delivered. So your Vue.js is getting delivered through CDN jsdeliver.net. That means the library is being imported already. So so next task will be how to use this. So in Vue.js, there is called an app object. So Vue app object is it's a fragment wherein you can do all your functionalities. For example, in our case, we want to consider this division or this parental division. Let me make the code large. So this inside div, the entire bit of login thing is inside this div. So we'll be using an ID tag, ID equal to, for example, login, yeah, and we'll go below and add a script. Yeah. So what Vue.js says at use, you have to bind your division or the entire fragment into that app object. So in order to create that app object, you have to use the Vue class. Let login app equal to new Vue. If you go around and create this ID, sorry, EL. So you can put your ID here itself. That means your division is connected. This div is connected to that. So here you can see EL. Okay, EL is used like that. You can use anywhere. So this login division is connected to your app. Now, whatever functions you are using here, you can immediately use into your Vue fragment. So the fragment which you have connected with this app object. So remove this, or yeah. So next thing is that Vue object requires one more parameter known as data, inside which you can keep all those dynamic variables which you want to change in real time. For example, in my case, it's a username. What is this? Yeah, in my case, it's email ID. So email ID. So when there is, in starting, there is no email ID entered. So I'll keep this as nothing and the password. So, so what happens whenever you want to change the email ID of that division, you can change it here itself in the app itself, and it automatically binds the changing to your division. So now how to bind that? It's very simple. Just copy. I mean, you have to copy this variable name, and you have to search for input field. If you go there, you will see this input field is there, named email ID. You can do Vue model. So Vue model means you have to bind this input with this app object. So yeah, so there is one more there is one more input, this. So I have to Vue model that also, and in that I have to put password. So for checking it out whether it has binded or not, let me put anything like JOI, and inside this also I'll put something. So now let me see, when I reload, it should be binded. So variable should be binded. So it takes a little bit of time to reload. Okay, it's not able to find this ID. So the last thing we did was we binded this app with the sign in fragment. Now if you can see, if you remove this, if you can see the variable is binded, and whatever changes you want to do in the variable, you can do it here itself. So if you go in login app dot email ID equal to something new, and so that changes. So if you change it to something new, if you can see here, this changes with this variable, because I have binded this input uh, tag this input tag with my variable. So whatever variable I want to change, so this changes. So that's how you change all your real-time uh, HTML, I mean, things using this Vue.js. So there are other things, other functionalities in Vue.js which you can do. For example, the next is method. What the method does is very simple. It makes a combined object of all those actions or all those functions you want to do in that app fragment, or in this login fragment, whatever the actions, whatever the functions or methods you want to do is added here. For example, I want to log in, so I'll make a login object, login function. So creating the function is very simple. It's a dictionary. So methods is a dictionary of all those functions you will be using inside your app. So let me make a login function. Making a function is very easy. So uh, so function making is function. Yeah, that's how you create your login function. Inside this, you can do whatever you want, and then use that function later on. So, but I'll explain you one more terminologies. So, people has been using all those uh, ES5. So right now I have shown you some for loop and all. So that those are like ES5. And for example, those var and all those are like ES5 way of writing the code. New way of writing the code was you can use it instead of var, you can use lat. So what the lat means is lat is scopes your variable inside that scopes. I mean, for example, if you creating new variable, for example, email equal to, so what happens, the email variable scoped inside the function. So inside this login function, it is being scoped. So this does not is not usable outside this function, whether if you are calling this email from outside here itself. So email console dot, sorry, console.email. So it is not accessible because it has been scoped by let. So that's how people generally use let. It's very handy to use let also. So it doesn't create error in your codes. Or you also know one more thing is like instead of writing a big function parameter and then creating like that, there is one more new way of creating a function which helps us in making our function look little bit less lengthy. So it's this arrow, equal arrow uh, design. I mean, so this is a function actually. So instead of writing function like that, you can do like this. So this is also a function. So instead of creating function, you can use this arrow operator and make your function. So this is very small to write. You don't have to write FUNCTION. That is lengthy. So people generally use the shorthand function operator. And so yeah, so all you can add your own uh, some kind of actions inside this. Right now, what I'll do, I will console log email and password, whatever has been typed there. So, inside login, I'll console dot log, and for accessing this uh, variable, I'll do something like that. Uh, your email ID is login app dot email ID. And now I have written my function. Now I want to do this function on some events. Events in the sense when you do some click event or any such kind of event, that function should run. So in my scenario, I'll do on click, or instead of in Vue.js, what it does, instead of writing on, you can write at the rate click login. So, so when the user clicks on sign in but submit button, it should run this method. So right now we have created a simple Vue.js app. We'll check it out by refreshing it. Uh, yeah. So let me write my email address there, and we'll console it. Okay, it reloads because the button has a form object on top of this. So what form does, it submits the form and opens the same page. So remove, instead of form, I'll add div. This won't let the submit button do a reload. So let me do first reload of my code, and we'll see. Why I remove form? Because whenever you do submit, it automatically submits the data what I have entered and reloads the page. But I don't want to reload the page. I just want to run this function and yeah, and do my login function. Okay, so it's reloaded, and I'll be adding my email, and I'll do console. So you can see whatever the function I have used, uh, it is running. So now, as you guys already have written the code for Hasura and all, so you will go to that Hasura in Heroku. Let's open Heroku. That we have written a code where we have created a table of users. In that we had email IDs and password. So we'll use that server for authenticating whether our username exists or not. So this is the one which I have created, and I will open the app. So that day we created a table named user. We'll use this table as our login page will authenticate from this server. So first of all, we'll be creating the query. The query will be simple. We have to search where password equal to and username equal to, yeah, and get its ID. So whenever I type password Jodash and username Jodash, it should return my ID. So that means the user exists in our database. So like that day itself, what we will do, we'll inspect it. We'll go to the network section. We'll run the same query again. We'll copy that as a curl, and then we'll open one more tab. Generally, for my development and all, I use Postman, which is really very handy. And I would also suggest to use Postman and
ఏంటది అసలు కొందరు వద్దు అసలు
Okay, so done. So the code runs. The code runs without any issues. I will go to the code and I'll go to JavaScript fetch. And now the next step is I'll paste that code and inside my where I have been using those things, I'll be using login. Okay, so that's why the issues was. Yeah. So now I'll go to my app. It should run now without any issue. Uh, so as you can see that it returns an ID. So if I enter some wrong thing, so it doesn't refresh. So the benefit of Vue.js is in server side itself, in the client side itself, you can do all kind of operations, which initial people had to do in the server. So when you do in the server, so the page had to refresh it. And when you refresh the page, it has to load once again all the libraries and it takes time for users to come back into the same page. So using Vue, you can do everything in the background itself without doing any such kind of refresh. You can see if I enter the real one, it returns ID. And if I enter the wrong one, it doesn't return ID. So you can pretty much put your own uh, conditions. If it returns ID, then user is signed it. And if it doesn't returns ID, then the user doesn't sign it. And also there is one more inbuilt library, just like fetch, which you can use. I'll tell you what local storage is. Local storage dot set item. You can pretty much set item using keyword. For example, the type of item I want to save is ID. So I'll be saving my ID as whatever my ID is. It's a random ID, whatever my ID is. When I save it, it directly goes to your storage. And if you see in the local storage, inside this, you can see ID is stored. So whatever there in the code itself, you can get back that from local storage in a very easy way. Get item, and inside that you can put ID. So you can get back those from your local storage. So the local storage is the storage of the browser. So it doesn't get stored in your server itself. So whatever the code you write, you make sure that the ID is only accessible to the browser itself and it's not accessible in the server. So yeah, and you can pretty much use this ID for doing the future queries to the server. And yeah, this will help you in keeping track who the user is and do proper authentications. So yeah, so pretty much the I will wrap up once again. You have to go to Bootstrap and copy the template, paste it here, go to the components forms, copy the form, paste it there, include the Vue.js library, create the app object, and then create this data. Yeah, cookies and local storage are different in some scenario. Like cookies, every time when you do a request, the cookies is sent also in the request itself. So you can access the cookies in the server itself. So, when you're using cookies, you can access in the server like request.cookies dot your variable name. But in local storage, you don't send cookies to the server. So it's not accessible in the server. It's only accessible in the browser. If you want to do some rendering, you have to do in the browser itself. So that's the main difference of cookies and local storage. Local storage is much more handy because uh, in whenever you do some request, it won't take uh, extra storage, extra data. Whenever you do cookie request, it will take cookie also in the request itself. So the request size increases, but in local storage, the size remains little bit less than the cookie request because the local storage data is not sent through the network. So I would suggest using local storage in every project. And even if you want to send authentication tokens, you can send it through header. So inside the request, you can add header. So if you go, there is headers or append. So whatever your authentication code, you can append it here itself. And and you can access from your server all those data very easily. So that all thing in future tutorial I'll explain. Today was pretty much very so many things I have explained. So it will take time for you to well yeah. So and so I'll wrap up data. So after creating the app object, you have to create data. Inside data, you have to create all those dynamic variable that will be changed. And inside the methods, you create all those function. Calling the methods from the uh, fragment is very easy. Keep in mind that outside the fragment, if you call this function, it won't work. So the fragment in the sense, the ID, the head division, inside this everything, wherever you add this function, it will work. But outside this division, it won't work. So this is the benefit of Vue.js. And you can do pretty much all kind of rendering. I would suggest you guys go and create your own calculator, addition, minus, subtraction, and division. So it will be pretty much helpful, and you will learn a lot. So creating that calculator is very easy. Just you have to create four methods, and two variables, a and b, and one result variable, and get a and b and do calculation and show it to the user. So try out creating a calculator in index.html. In the next session, I'll tell you how to host this in your GitHub, and this site will be visible to other users. And a little bit more about Vue.js. There are other things which I have to add on. I'll also explain authentications. This is the very noob level of authentication which I have explained. In future, I'll explain how the proper way of doing authentication, which is very important in software developers life, to know how these login and sign in works. That I'll explain in the next tutorial. Yeah, and till then, try how to make the calculator and show it to me in my WhatsApp private chat. Thank you.